morning. You guys feeling all right today? I've got a couple of apologies to start off with. Dreadfully American, dreadfully chipper, and I know a lot of you were out last night, so this is going to be a little bit... Sorry, I'll try and tone down all the bounciness. So yeah, I'm Jessica. I'm irritatingly bouncy. I do quite a bit of work now with tech education, which is specifically looking at adult learners. And we tend to focus on programming, so I'm really interested in getting adult learners working with technology. My background, I used to be a school teacher working with language learning and linguistics. And I really, really like emoji. My learners go on to do these incredible things. They're these brilliant, brilliant people who do these wonderful things. But I usually feel like I'm a bit crap. I don't feel like an especially good teacher. I usually describe myself as a lackluster programmer, which is weird. I hear these same things repeated by my learners, and it breaks my heart. I hear brilliant people talk about how they don't feel good enough, and that always feels a little bit weird. As a teacher and as somebody really invested in education, I love brains. They're these weird, soft, fluid-filled meat bags. And they're amazing. They're addicted to novelty. They want us to have new things. They want the best for us. They want new things. They want to learn. They want hard things. Brains are amazing. In language learning, there's the idea of the zone of proximal development. And I think this is a really, really great concept, not necessarily for language learning, but for learning in general. And it's got a lot to do with our brains having a sweet spot for learning. And I cannot pronounce this man's name, so I'm very sorry. A linguist called Vygotsky came up with this concept, and the zone of proximal development says, if you're working on something that's your current level or below, it's great for practice, but you're not doing any actual learning. You're just sort of going through the motions. And if you're working on something that's too high above your level, it's too challenging, you're not doing any meaningful learning, and you've actually got the potential to do quite a bit of damage psychologically, socially, and to your confidence. The zone of proximal development is this teeny tiny sweet spot where your brain is really happy to be. Unfortunately, your brain is so good at so many things. It loves to learn, it loves new things, it loves to push you. It is terrible at assessment. Your brain only wants to be in this tiny learning zone, and to get in that zone, you have to have a clear idea of your current skill level. And I'm sorry, former school teacher, there's going to be a bit of this. Who feels like they've got a really good handle on their skill level? Who feels like you know your level? All right, all four of you. And a lot of what really trips us up are cognitive biases. Cognitive biases are like these little tiny things in our brain. They're programs that don't quite work. They weren't ready for release, but they've been shipped anyway. And I know we're not supposed to quote Wikipedia, but I was always a lazy student. Wikipedia is telling us, cognitive bias is a systematic pattern of deviation from norm, rationality, and judgment. And that's all right, but I'm going to go with a definition I like a bit better. My husband, who's not here, Matt, hey Matt, he says that a cognitive bias is when your brain uses bad data to build worse conclusions, and then it really becomes attached to those conclusions. So we're getting input from all around us. We're getting input from the performance of our peers. We're getting input from our own performance. We're getting input from our own feelings. And we're taking that often misinterpreted data, and we're doing really screwed up things with it. And when we get those screwed up conclusions, we love them. Our brain is just like, well, I've decided that this is true. I'm going to hold on to this truth, even though it could be hurting me. The big cognitive bias we're talking about today is imposter syndrome. More hands up. Has anybody heard of imposter syndrome before? What? It's a little bit of a hot take, sorry. Imposter syndrome is this persistent, yet intermittent, so very strong, but only now and again, feeling that you have no idea what you're doing. It's the idea that your peers, the people you can see around you exhibiting the same skills, they know what they're doing. They're confident, they're competent, but you feel like a fake, like a fraud. You feel like you're not able to do what you see in your peers. And now's the very vulnerable hands up. Who's ever felt like that? Who's ever felt like you're faking it? Keep it up for 1 second. Everybody take a look at who doesn't have their hand raised. Y'all are gonna love this. I saw a couple hands go up at the end, be like, oh, no. So I'm really into practicalities. I love soft, fluffy people things, but I wanna know about how these soft, fluffy people things affect us. So I wanna talk about what imposter syndrome actually does for individuals. Imes and Clance, they didn't write the book on imposter syndrome, but they did write sort of the seminal study. And they found 4 key findings, 4 conclusions that they say they found out of their study. And this is way back in '78, so roughly 100 million years ago for you, those of you in your 20s. They first found that people who talked about imposter syndrome, people who felt they suffered from it, reported feelings of inadequacy. And that makes sense, that feels true to me. That's kind of wrapped up in the definition of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is feeling like a fraud? Hey, I don't feel good enough. This one feels really true to me. They found that people who reported suffering from imposter syndrome avoided displays of target skills. So as a self-taught technologist, I've got a couple very big gaps in my knowledge that I'm very embarrassed of. If I ever have to do anything on the terminal, I'm gonna take my computer over there, thank you very much. So you'll see people who suffer from imposter syndrome go out of their way not to display key behaviors they feel insecure about. And both of these are pretty negative. We think these suck. Okay, I think these suck. But they also saw that people who reported feeling like frauds used charm, used social skills to move around what they perceived as gaps in their knowledge. And they also found that people who said, I feel like I can't do this, reported a greater amount of diligence, longer contact hours. They found that people who didn't feel good enough, people who were afraid, worked harder. And this is a great thing, I guess, for employers. It's a great thing short term. But I don't think that being motivated by fear and being motivated by that feeling a lot of us get is going to be sustainable long term. So I really want to look at really fast who is impacted by imposter syndrome. We did a quick and dirty sampling and found that 3/4 of you, can we do it one more time? Hands up. Come on, those of you who didn't put your hands up last time, this is a real good chance to get off the hook. We're going to come back to the Imes and Clance study, and their academic perspective is they found that high-achieving women were most often impacted. And I think a little bit of this is sample bias. They went out to study high-achieving women and high-achieving women. A little more modern, we saw Vera Vasquez and Corona in 2006 do a very similar study, and they found an increased rate of imposter syndrome amongst high-achieving women of color. And then I read a whole bunch of papers, and I'll TLDR it for you. Lots of people suffer from imposter syndrome, but they found that high-achieving visible minorities reported feeling that they were impacted more. And they found that women more readily reported feeling like they were imposters. But we've got scientific data here, and we've got some pretty cool anecdotal data from sampling the audience. What's with this mismatch? I can't see especially well, but I think we've got a group, thank you. We've got a crowd that's diverse, but we've got a lot of really well-represented people who said, you know what, sometimes I feel like I'm faking it. And I'm really interested in why this mismatch between academic discourse and why this mismatch between talking to people about imposter syndrome and the people I see reporting it. And I think there's a couple big reasons for this. I think that there are a lot of things that are difficult and a lot of things that are different for underrepresented groups, especially in technology. But I think there are a couple of things that suck, that uniquely suck about being a guy. And being able to talk about feelings. They're saying, you know, we see women saying, I feel inadequate. I feel like I'm not good enough. I feel like I'm not ready. I think a lot of that may come out of the fact that it's a lot safer for women to say, I feel. You've got a lot of baggage attached to masculinity, and I think it's really difficult and really scary for a guy to say, I feel almost anything. Another great one is, well, I'm not sure if it's great. If you're well represented in technology, you've got a really, really great chance to draw reassurance from your peer groups. If I am a bald yellow smiley face, and I look around in my office or in my community and my peers and I say, oh, well, there's a bunch of bald yellow smiley faces here, and they seem cool. All right, maybe things are cool. I can see myself in my peers, they're doing all right. I'm gonna calm down, have a cup of tea. But let's say I'm not well represented. Let's say I'm a pointy yellow cat. And I don't really see myself in my peer group. I look around and I see a bunch of bald yellow smiley faces. And they're doing really well. And they seem really confident. But I'm not seeing myself echoed back in their success. So instead of, that's me, they're like me, this is okay, I'm still just a cat. And I think it's really common to have internalized discrimination play a part in feelings of inadequacy and imposter syndrome. I think oftentimes underrepresented groups get subtle or unsubtle messages that say, oh, it's okay, that was really hard, or we didn't expect you to do that, it's okay, or oh, wow, you can do this? And getting those messages, getting coded discriminatory messages, aren't always something underrepresented people are going to attribute to discrimination. If I hear, oh, good job, often enough, I don't think, oh, maybe this is a bit patronizing towards women. I think, oh, everyone thinks I'm a bit crap. I love technology. I think technology is beautiful and brilliant and weird. I've got a lot of feelings about technology that mirror my feelings about the human brain. Technology has been incredible for imposter syndrome. We can read about it, we can talk about it, we can watch much better talks than this about it. But I think social media is having a really big impact on imposter syndrome and on individual feelings of self-worth. When I look at social media, I've got nearly a live stream of my peers, of my community members, of my heroes, which is amazing. And I'm able to directly compare my lives to the experiences they're sharing. And that's humbling. I think it's really easy to forget that when you're comparing yourself to someone else's media presence, you're comparing the whole of your lived experiences to a very slim, curated snapshot of what they've been doing. So if someone goes to a Michelin-starred restaurant, they're going to take a couple pictures and put that on Instagram, and everybody's going to see that and go, they're doing quite well. Nobody's taking pictures of the ramen noodles they eat before payday. I think putting things in perspective, realizing that, everyone seems to be doing so much more, everybody seems to be doing so much better, is really looking at this carefully curated snapshot. So far, imposter syndrome is a bit crap. This is the first time I've given this talk without swearing, so I think we'll try and get through it. Imposter syndrome sucks. Hopefully, everybody's wondering, because I've promised practical fixes, fix it, how do we fix it? And because we've all had a talk on empathy, and you're wonderful people anyway, you care about other people. When you want me to fix it, when you want me to give practical to-do things to fix it, you're mostly concerned about fixing it for other people, right? Yeah. So I'm going to run through a very quick do and don't do couple of points, which I think really makes life easier, really helps dilute the effects of imposter syndrome for others. The first one, I would very, very much like everybody to make sure they're never labeling imposter syndrome for anybody else. Imposter syndrome is really personal, and it sounds like a number of other issues. So I've heard people talking about culture fit within developer communities that doesn't embrace them. I've heard them talk about culture fit within their roles, technical debt. I've heard people talk about really serious lack of support, and to have others around them say, oh no, that's not an external problem. You have imposter syndrome. It's your responsibility. Please fix it. Good day. Imposter syndrome, learning about it is a great way to go, oh God, this is the feeling I've had. Naming it for other people can often really delegitimize important complaints they might have. It's also just kind of a jerk move. Do give amazing feedback. The internet is like 70% feedback right now. The Twitter is just, no, this sucks, I hate this. I love the amount of real-time feedback it's possible to get, but I want to see a little bit more positive and on point. I want you to be talking to your peers about what you love about them, what you love about their projects, and I want to hear something positive and actionable. Say, do you know what? I saw that you were working on this project. I adore this feature. I'd love to see more of this in the future. It serves your own social needs. You say, hey, more of this, please. But bundled in a really supportive, really warm message. And for those of you who feel confident, I don't know if anybody ever feels confident at where they are in their career, but if you feel safe, talk about imposter syndrome, talk about feeling not good enough. It's amazing when you hear someone you think has their life completely together, take a moment to feel vulnerable and say, I also kind of feel like I'm screwing up, is a wonderful way to see yourself in their successes. So we've done the helping other people. We've done our being good people for the day. We just continue for the rest of the day. You can be terrible people when you go home. You want to fix it for yourself as well. Imposter syndrome, when it hits you, I imagine you know, is this weird, sick, confusing, derailing feeling. You're not getting a lot done. The first thing I'd ask you to do is just debug. Look at what's coming out of imposter syndrome. Don't try and fix the process. Just say, do you know what? When I have these feelings, when I get in this mode, I get stressed, I don't get my work done, I stay up late, I avoid things. Recognizing the symptoms that come out of these feelings and addressing those. Does anybody have, and hands up again, I love making hungover people struggle. Does anybody have like a thing you do when you're stressed? Wow, y'all need some more self-care. I would like to recommend eating cupcakes in the bathtub. It's a little bit weird, I'm told a little bit gross, but find something that works. Get really used to checking in on yourself, saying, is this stress? Is this imposter syndrome? Am I too hard on myself? Do I need a cupcake in the bath? And counterintuitively, assessment. Assessment is stressful and weird and bad. Tests are stressful and weird and bad. But when you feel like you're not doing enough, when you feel like you're not good enough, objective third-party assessment is a wonderful way to say, look, this is my skill level. This is letting me know where my zone of proximal development is. And my favorite one is mutual appreciation. So I've already told you to be nice to other people, which you're already glorious people, so you're doing. When you give people actionable, meaningful, positive feedback, people are transactional animals. We communicate in mirrored patterns. So if I say, I love your shirt, and I do love your shirt, there's a good chance you're going to come back and say, I like your shoes. If you need more support, if you need more warmth, if you need more people telling you what they like about what you're doing, the fastest way to get there is to be saying to other people, I love what you're doing. I want to hear more about this. The best way to get support is to give support. So we've been talking a lot about really crappy things about imposter syndrome and sort of quick and dirty fixes like, it sucks, but you can do these things. I love my brain, and I love your brains, and I want to take a quick detour to explore a different cognitive bias, to see whether or not our brains aren't doing something a little bit different. We looked at the Imes and Clant study, and we found that I think 2 of these are pretty negative. Feelings of inadequacy suck. Avoiding displays of target skills is going to sideline your ability to do things. But being a bit charming, that's pretty positive. And working harder, even if it's coming from a kind of dark place, is going to get you some positive results. I'd like to explore whether or not imposter syndrome is giving us another really important message. All right, another hands up. Has anybody ever as a child, used lemon juice as an invisible ink? Hey, for those of you who haven't, you could take lemon juice and write on a piece of paper, and it's invisible till you heat it up. Back in the mid-90s, there was a bank robber who decided to rob a bank in broad daylight in the United States. And before entering the bank, he decided to cover his face with lemon juice. With the premise, he later explained to the police that this way, the security cameras won't see me. And 2 Cornell researchers, Dunning and Kruger, were reading the paper, and they said, as researchers do, "This is amazing. Do you think stupid people know they're stupid?" This is the only abstract I've ever read that involves the phrase, "too thick to know they're thick." It's good. I recommend the full study. And they decided to be like, yeah, let's do a study on people to see what stupid people think. So they took a sample set of a little more than 2,000 people, and they gave them a very general aptitude test. And at this point, I was already really impressed that they got 2,000 people to sit through an aptitude test. And after the test, they sat down individually with the test takers to say, yeah, good job. Could you plot on this graph how you think you did relative to your peers? And I think you'll be absolutely shocked to know, and this is what studies looked like back in the 90s. I love to say quartile, but for non-native speakers, the bottom 25%, the less skilled, if we're being diplomatic, the least skilled plotted their skill level artificially high. The less skilled thought, you know what, this is a hard test, but I'm great. So other people did much worse. And then you've got this wonderful inverse X, where the less skilled you are, the more you're willing to artificially inflate your own performance. Up to and including the most highly skilled artificially devalue their skill sets. They came to a couple conclusions. The unskilled, you know what, they bless their little cotton socks. They are unaware of their own lack of skill. And you know what? Not only are they unable to tell how skilled they are, they can't see skill in other people. If they can't gauge their own skill, they have no idea how good you are. And it is possible for these unskilled individuals to move past their lack of skill. But to do so, they need to recognize their own lack of skill, bringing us back to point 1 and a self-defeating loop. And when I first saw this, the Dunning-Kruger effect, the idea that really thick people don't know they're thick, I was thrilled because I knew that guy. I had once worked with that guy. But after I was delighted that I'd finally had an explanation for, that guy in the office, I was pretty pissed off. I worry all the time. I am constantly frustrated. I am always worried that I'm not doing well enough. And some asshole is just like, I'm great all the time. That's immensely frustrating. But after a while I stopped and had a bit of a think. I was thinking, do you know what? My brain, my beautiful, weird, self-defeating, defective, brain, in telling me that I'm not good enough, that these people are wonderful, that I'm not doing enough, that I don't know enough, that my brain's giving me the best signal it knows how to do in its terrible, damaged, flawed way, to tell me that I'm not great, but I'm not the bottom quartile. So those of you who had your hands raised, enjoy your really, really screwed up indication from your brain that maybe things are all right. Cool. Thank you all very much for coming out. For those of you who don't feel comfortable asking questions in public, I've got my Twitter handle down at the bottom, and DMs are open. So if you want to chat to me on something one-on-one, just let me know via that. Cool. Thank you very much.